The mainstream media is losing a lot of its power. Let me tell you, it couldn't come fast enough. However, they still have a lot of sway out there, right? You have all these different organizations who all have the same talking points, the same stories, the same opinions. And that, of course, means they still have a lot of influence over many people who just basically haven't seen the lies yet. But thankfully, we have so many alternative news sources popping up that people can actually get exposed to the truth a lot faster than ever before. So in celebration, of course, of this downfall of traditional media, we're going to see Tucker Carlson actually roast MSNBC, specifically Joe Scarborough of The Morning Joe, in spectacular fashion. Let's check this out.
But you got to wonder, though, I mean, and you're in a good position to answer this because you've been in this business your whole life. Well, those places do seem like they're in their death throes. Like Joe Scarborough, like if
look at their numbers. Their numbers.
That's what I'm saying. So Joe makes whatever 10 million or 12 million a year, or whatever Joe makes. But if Joe Scarborough like walked into the NBC News HQ tomorrow, would he ever be able to sign a contract like that? Like the business model.
No.
So the people currently on the air at those channels are really on their last contracts because none of this can't. I
hope so.
Nobody watches it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Scarborough since he's gone so hard against Trump the last couple of weeks. And I love the fact that you just interviewed Cuomo, so I'll bring Cuomo up. The other night he had Geraldo on, and they were discussing the coverage of the bloodbath comment and other things. And they were talking about how these guys are hypocrites. How Mika and Joe, leading up to the 2016 election, had Trump on like every other morning, and they were kissing his ass. And now fast forward a few years, and he's the devil. He's the, you know the phrase, he's the threat to democracy. We're a republic, by the way. Thanks, idiots. But every day, threat to democracy. And they call us that, threat to democracy. What the hell does that mean? Free speech is a threat to democracy?
It's interesting if you wake up in a country where all of a sudden you're getting a moral lecture from, of all people, Joe Scarborough.
Or Joy Reid.
Moral left, yeah, but especially Joe Scarborough. Yeah, well, Joy Reid's just like an idiot, an angry idiot, but...
And the most racist, thank you, the most racist host on television.
It's unbelievable.
I have to say it weekly with him.
But a moral lecture from Joe Scarborough is so... It's hallucinogenic. I can hardly even believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like getting a fitness lecture from an obese person. That's like, I don't judge that you're fat. In Joe's case, I don't judge that you're evil. Like, you've got to deal with God on that question. Yeah. That is not for me to judge. But for you to lecture me about morality, it's like
there's so many skeletons in those main hosts and talk show hosts.
So that's actually hilarious. I totally forgot myself how friendly the Trump campaign was with Joe Scarborough in The Morning Joe. I mean, it's truly crazy to see the total 180 they've done. I mean, check this out.
You guys have been supporters, and I really appreciate it. And not necessarily supporters, but at least believers. You said there's some potential there.
Yes, that was a total thing. And of course, you had stories like this from CNN. Joe Scarborough and Donald Trump's friendship is increasing source of discomfort over at NBC. So yeah, I wonder why he completely changed his stance. Of course, also everyone changed their stances on Trump as soon as he walked down that golden escalator, and he totally revealed the media for who they actually are. The Trump derangement syndrome, of course, as it has come to be known. Now, one other thing that was mentioned there was also the severe lack of ratings. I mean, if you come over here and take a look at the numbers, you can see that yes, in fact, MSNBC, although the most popular leftist news organization, is getting just simply destroyed by Fox News. You can see we have Fox, MSNBC, Fox, MSNBC, and all the way down here at number 23 is The Morning Joe. He is the 7th most popular show on MSNBC, which I suppose is an accomplishment. Looks like he's got about 1-point-something million average viewers, so good for him. Right? But yes, this is nothing compared to the power the media used to have. And you can say this is all inevitable. This is just basically everyone moving away from the traditional media and into apps, etc. Or is it because people have found alternative sources they actually trust, and everyone sees through this garbage? Right? And of course, that's something else that Tucker basically points out. These people are almost done. They're on their last contracts. The numbers do not uphold the salaries. There's a reason why Don Lemon is gone. There's a reason why all these people were moved off of CNN. The value simply wasn't there. And of course, here we have Tucker Carlson actually speaking to Dan Ball, one of the bigwigs over at OAN. And this, of course, is a very interesting story because I remember watching OAN a lot and quite liking it, right? They actually came to prominence the same time around Newsmax as an alternative to Fox, because Fox, of course, is kind of leaning to the left, as we see every June, if you know what I mean. But the idea is they've actually disappeared quite a lot because there's been so much pressure from politicians and other organizations to remove them from platforms, to remove them from services, from cable services, right? From all these different outlets, simply because no one liked the truth they were actually spreading. But let's hear more of this from Dan Ball in his own words.
How are government officials trying to shut down your news organization?
So go back to 2020. Let's start with the reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop.
Yes.
OAN was the first one to break that,
yes,
say it was legit. We had Rudy Giuliani come on with our Chanel Rion and discuss it. We even went over to Ukraine and interviewed some folks. And in August, we broke that story before the election. We were then called by every single mainstream media outlet and Democrats, purveyors of disinformation, Russian propagandists. There was people online saying that we were owned by Russia, that we favored Putin, that Mr. Herring was bought and paid for by Russia or Trump. I can guarantee you it's a sweet 82-year-old hardworking man and his two sons that own us, not Putin, not Trump. I can assure you. I've been there almost 4 years now.
Can I just say, because I've been obviously the subject of this as well.
Yes, you know.
I don't really care who owns your news network, anyone's news network. If it turned out that, you were owned by Vladimir Putin, I would, which you're not, of course, but I would still assess the product on its own terms. Is what you're saying true or not? I mean, that's all that matters.
And what did they tell us back then? The laptop was Russian disinformation. You had those, 50-some ex-intelligence community people say it was misinformation,
Liars.
disinformation,
Liars.
Russian propaganda. Yes, sir. And we aired it. So that's when it really started. Okay, they looked at us and went, oh my God, these guys are going to interfere with the election because we're spitting truth to power. We're telling you this laptop is real. The big guy's Joe Biden. He's taking 10%. He's used his family and his influence to make millions, to enrich himself. Well, they didn't like that very much.
No.
And then, of course, COVID. We're in the middle of COVID. So it was kind of cascading downward from the Hunter Biden laptop story to COVID coverage. And then we had the 2020 election. Okay. And we had people on, of course, discussing irregularities in the election. They didn't like any of that. So it started several ways. YouTube demonetized us. I mean, every time we'd put a story up about COVID, masks, distancing, the laptop, boom, take it down, 30-day suspension, 60 days, or just try to kill the whole account. And then all of a sudden, letters came out. I think about 21 or 22. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on the date. But you had a letter, and I think I gave them to your producers. There was a letter from 4 Democrat senators and 2 California Congress folks, Democrats, who sent letters to not only all of the satellite and cable carriers, but also to advertisers. And they used that little thing from NewsGuard, which I've heard you talk about NewsGuard and that ESG rating and pyramid system.
It's just a CIA operation to shut down the truth, of course.
And they told them to get rid of, and your old network was named Fox, Newsmax, and OAN. Now, who's the smallest on that totem pole? We are. So they came after us.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, OAN basically just kind of disappeared, right? It wasn't showing up in my feeds anymore, and I kind of forgot about it until Tucker Carlson actually started this interview, and I'm like, oh yeah, OAN. I like them. They're actually the most conservative of all of these outlets, as I recall at the time. And now having him come out and explain in aggressive detail exactly what was happening, where you have Congress people saying, oh, this is all wrong. These people are doing disinformation, so they have to be canceled. And of course, that goes against everything we stand for as a country, or at least used to. But it really encapsulates that particular period in time around 2019, 2020, when you couldn't say anything. You couldn't discuss anything. You were being demonetized. You were being canceled simply for trying to get the truth out there. And guess what? Everything he was discussing there turned out to be correct. But what do? You go back and fix that timeline? No, you can't. Once you squash that story, once you squelch that momentum, it's basically gone and you can't talk about it anymore. You don't get it back. But here we are now, years later, looking back on that period of time and saying, wow, things really were crazy. It really was nuts in terms of free speech, in terms of getting information out there, in terms of all the big tech conglomerates just trying to tamp down the free and fair use and spreading of information. It really seems like we've come an awful long way since then, and honestly, a lot of it has to do with Elon Musk.
I think that the American people are seeing through the facade of mainstream media, especially just 2 weeks ago with the bloodbath statement of Trump, and thanks to Elon opening up X so people could see it. Unlike everything's been stifled on all social media thanks to Zuckerberg and those guys, right? So I think just that one little tidbit where they saw how the media takes a soundbite out of context, and then the politicians take it and make ads, and you had millions of people on X for days a week and a half ago discussing how, and these were lefties, independents, and righties. Everybody was discussing it. I think that and the spaces and things on X where he's opened it up to free speech, that is the new town square. And I hope that and places like OAN are going to save us.
Say what you will about Elon Musk. I mean, the man is basically someone on the left. At least he believes in free speech and free flow of information. And what he did with Twitter is truly amazing, especially for the discourse and the change in sentiment in this country. So thank you for watching. As usual, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.